Welcome, Australia. It's that time again for another podcast from the Mate team, where we try and get into your head with stuff that makes us sound smart. Sit back and relax. It's time for us to be mates. Hi, Australia. Welcome to another Let's Be Mate podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Faz, and in the room, as per usual, we've got Dom and Bosco. Boys, how are we going today?
Good.
Very good. Another time to that time of the week again for another Let's Be Mate podcast. In today's episode, we are talking to Matt Francis and Tanya Newhouse from a company called Clevertar. Clevertar is a company that we engage with to build our virtual agent or our AI bot that we use for after hours when our call center is closed. At Mate, service is our number one focus as we feel this is the thing that sets us apart from our competitors. We are always trying to ensure we have the right balance of automation and physical or verbal contact with our customers to ensure they are getting the type of service they need and want and ultimately deserve. We aren't open 24/7, and we know customers have a time and a place that they choose to do what they need to do. And hence, we engage with Clevertar to support us in those after-hour times where our human call center representatives aren't available. Clevertar offers a product that, for us, humanises service even when there isn't a real person available. Clevertar offers a conversational AI virtual agent with a friendly face that we call Grace. Well, welcome to the Let's Be Mate podcast, Tanya and Matt. Thanks for joining us. Glad to have you guys on board.
Thanks for having us.
Yep, thanks guys. Great to be here.
Yeah,
It's great. It's a beautiful day outside. We're talking to some beautiful people. It can't be any better, right?
No, not at all. For our listeners, I guess if you can give us a bit of a background of who you are, what you've done, and what your role is at Clevertar as well.
All right.
Do you want to start us off?
Well, thank you. Okay, well, I'll let you know who I am. I'm Tanya Newhouse. I'm CEO and co-founder of Clevertar. Just wanted to say again, I'm really stoked to be here. Thanks for having us. And this is Matt.
Yeah, Matt Francis. I'm the solutions manager at Clevertar, and been with the company for almost 6 years now. Not quite at its inception, but pretty soon after. Really excited. Love what you guys do, and looking forward to the chat.
Okay, so tell us a bit about Clevertar, guys. So what exactly is Clevertar? What does it do? And what's the mission of your business?
All right. Well, perhaps I'll answer that given what I do at Clevertar, because Clevertar began with me in a pot plant, as small businesses do. Now we're much bigger than that and do lots of work with lots of businesses. But what we do is our mission. What we really aim to do is extend the customer service arm of businesses that we work with. So a lot of our customers have contact centres where they're supporting thousands of customers, and what we want to do is really extend the reach of that contact centre through a digital channel. And so we have these things called virtual agents, or some people call them chatbots, but ours have a face and a voice, and our virtual agents can help people. Help customers deal with issues and problems and solve them in the comfort of their own home on the web.
Oh, beautiful. And I think I relate to the story a lot because you mentioned you started the business from yourself and a pot plant, right? And I think if you look at our story as well, it's similar, right? My brother David, my identical twin brother David. Yes, there's two of us. Yes, and it's scary. And yes, we're both bald, and yes, we both have beards. All right, so you can't get any more identical than that. But David had the idea of tackling the NBN market when the big guys weren't tackling because the ADSL was making a far more margin than the NBN was, and we literally started in my auntie's backyard next to my uncle who had a goat in the backyard, right? So not a pot plant, but we'll say it's next to a goat, right? And obviously we're much bigger today, and as you guys as well. So the story really resonates with us. And I guess if we take away from Clevertar for the moment, but how has the journey been personally for you, Tanya, from when you started the business to where you are today? How have you? There's obviously, everybody makes mistakes along the way. Everybody gets frustrated. Everybody feels defeated at some point. Talk about a bit of your journey from when you started to where you are now.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate that. Well, look, it wasn't just me. Well, it was me right at the beginning, but I'll tell you how we started. I met a researcher at Flinders University. So I was working at Flinders at the time in their commercialisation arm. And I met a researcher there whose name's Martin, and he's actually my co-founder. And he was doing research into how humans communicate so that you can improve human-machine communication. So he's actually from the Artificial Intelligence Lab at Flinders University. And has a PhD in machine learning, as you do. And he was showing me some of this stuff that he was doing, which was using virtual characters to interact with people instead of just text on the screen. And what he was telling me was just absolutely fascinating, that when people engage with a virtual character, they tend to respond to the character a little bit more like when you respond to a real human. So this has got uses in places like health, and in fact we did a lot of work in the early days in health, where if a virtual person asks you to do some exercise, you're actually more likely to do their exercise because you don't want to disappoint them. And so we actually started in a different way to a lot of businesses, where we started with a technology and then had to figure out where the best application for that technology was, rather than saying, oh, here's a problem that I'm going to solve. We actually started with almost like a solution. So that was, in terms of my own journey, that was actually really hard, because we spent quite a long time figuring out where that best application actually was. And although we had some pretty early success in health, what we found is that the health business doesn't support this type of tech yet. It's really just not ready for it. Whereas like places like yours, where you're able to think ahead of the game, we're actually open and willing to try it at scale. And so the difficult part of our journey was really finding out the best home for our solution. So yeah, that was the hard bit, but we're there, we got there.
Yeah, and you make some valid points around. So you found what you did. You found where you feel that your product's going to get the best return or be the best value, right, to the people that you work with, right? And I guess that's how we decided to target our business, right? When we talk about sales and marketing, when we talk about, we're not. Every company's not for everybody, right? And we know, we know we appeal to different people, and we offer a level of service that works for different type of people as well. And I think it's very powerful for business owners to understand that, right? Because then you're not wasting your time, you're not wasting your money, and you're not wasting resources in your business to deliver something that people don't want, right? And I think that's, and I always say, I think the reason why I feel that we've been successful at Mate is because we know, we're very open about what we don't know, and we're very open about where we don't want to go, or what we feel doesn't make sense to our business as well. And that keeps us on track in the right space. And
the way we see our customers interact with and ask questions of our virtual agent Grace is very different to, if it was just a chatbot, you type very short leading answer questions to. So yeah, it's really interesting that happens. Are people more, people obviously act differently, but are they more inclined to go further down a path with a virtual agent versus a normal chatbot?
Yeah, can I actually respond to that with a story? So since we've been working with you guys, and I really love what you do, I decided to become a customer of Mate myself.
Good.
And then I told my husband, you should also sign up. And I forgot the $50 voucher, which I'm so bummed about. I forgot to claim it. But anyway, I forgot that. But anyway, I told Andrew, you've got to sign up as well. So he did. And it was after hours one night when he was wondering what to do. And he, this is better than what happened. I was in the study. I was doing some work. He was on his computer. And I turn over and I see him, and he's brought Grace up. And he's asking questions like, when am I going to get my SIM card? And I thought, yes, this is totally working. When your own product's in use by your own husband with your customer,
hopefully he got the answer. Did he end up getting the answer?
Actually,
should have.
think so. He didn't tell me he did it.
His phone's ringing. So
That's
he
good.
must-
His phone's ringing. He's got his SIM card. He's activated. Right. That's good. That's all that matters in the end.
Look, if he didn't get the answer, I'm sure I would have been the first person that he would have told.
Yeah.
But so I guess the answer is, and also, by the way, my husband's not particularly technologically brilliant. I had to help him put his SIM card in his phone. This is actually true. But yeah, he can deal with Grace and actually ask her questions and get to the right answer. So I guess in short, yes, he can.
Well, I mean, let's talk about why we've engaged Clevertar at Mate, and let's talk about the project that we've done there today, to date, right? And one of the things that we were trying to solve was, our business is not 24 hours, right? We haven't got 24-hour support. We haven't got somebody answering the phone 24 hours, and that's because we want our team to live their life some way, shape, or form. Because we spend pretty much our whole week here, and we obviously open Saturdays as well. And we obviously wanted to support customers that wanted to be a mate or a customer of ours in after hours times as well. And this is where this whole conversation started. And we didn't, when you grow as a business, you don't always have the money and the resource ready to have a business that's open 24/7. And there's a lot of things that we need to do as we mature as a business. And one of the things that we wanted to focus on is after-hour support. What were people missing? How could we support them? We know there's a need. We know people come from all different places, all walks of life, and do things very differently, right? And people want to consume information and get access in their time, in their place, the way they want. And the only thing that we knew during business hours, right? We had it covered. We had people on the phone. We had our, live chat that was manned by real people. We had, Facebook Messenger. We had all these contact points for people, which was good. But after hours is a challenge. And don't forget, advertising doesn't stop after hours, right? We can't go to a Google ad and say stop, or go to a billboard and say don't turn on between, from 8 till 8 in the morning. And so we needed to keep the conversation going. And that's where the Clevertar platform came in and the project came in. And I think, and from our side, it made a lot of sense, right? We had somebody that was, we had a virtual agent that was visual, right? And so we've got Grace. We call her Grace. That's actually my mum's name. I'm not sure if you knew where that came from, Grace. Yeah, so Grace is my mum's name, and so she takes care of everybody in the business. And like literally today, we're in the office today, and she lives around the corner, and she's bringing lunch for everybody, right? And so the whole point of Grace was that Grace takes care of everybody, right? And so hence why we called her our conversational virtual agent Grace. That's where that came from, and so it became very visual. Grace on the virtual agent wears a mate shirt, and the voice is very local, and very it's very human as well, and the ability to put the magnitude of needs in selling NBN into a virtual agent. So if you think about it, when you connect to NBN, you need to know what type of technology, then that technology that drives what they call a service class. And that service class drives a time frame of when you can connect it. And that service class determines, is it a remote connection? Is it somebody needs to come out? And then you need to work out, okay, what type of hardware do you have? Is the hardware right for your connection? And so on and so forth. And so you could imagine all different journeys a consumer could take, that needs to be driven by a non-human after hours. And that's where the Clevertar platform allows us to feed that in. And I don't know if you guys want to elaborate on that and what we've done with Clevertar there, because I feel like what we do is probably quite in depth, and there's a lot of different paths. And I'd love to, if you want to talk about...
Maybe Matt can sort of jump in and talk through the process that we went through, but what another business would go through as well, from very start to getting Grace on, or their Grace equivalent online.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, the installation that we've got with Grace has been probably from a personal point of view, the one that I'm probably the most passionate about. I've really enjoyed, and our whole team has really enjoyed working with the Mate team. I think because there is quite a synergy in what you guys represent, and your core values and how we operate as well. And we're really trying to break down something that's a complex task. Someone goes to get their NBN input, or we've got another project we're working with government where it's, you know, bonds and tenancies and housing matters, and you know they can be quite cold topics.
And
dry. And if you've got somebody there with a nice face and that can hold your hand through that process and talk to you, then you know it can be a fantastic experience, and that's really what we're about. And I guess starting out with you guys, this has really taken an organic process over the last 6 months, and we've continued to build on that and improve things as we've gone, based on, you know, looking at real world data, and that's, you know, that is the best way to work out what's working and what isn't. But starting out with you guys, it was looking at what are people coming to after hours in terms of what are their main support issues, and how can we try to have grace for the most part, help them to solve those issues. An example might be, you know, my modem stopped working, and I haven't got any internet, and it's walking them through a first level support call. And really that was one thing that became quite clear, was that, you know, for a vast majority of the content that people ring up for, there is a process that can take place where, you know, you could script it out. But obviously it does become quite complex quite quickly sometimes. And that's certainly something that we're very careful of, is that we don't ever think that what we do can ever completely replace a call center or a human support team. You know, human issues are often very complex. And for that reason, you need to have people on the front line able to deal with them. So but what we're doing is looking to take away the load that gets put on that call center by answering those first level support questions, where you might be able to have a, you know, 2 or 3 minute chat with Grace or any other bot, and then be able to walk away and go, oh, actually, I solved that myself. So going back to the start of the question, how do we start out? Well, we look at areas that that an organization is currently feeling the pressure of. So where are they experiencing pain, you know, for lack of a better word? So, you know, in your case, it was that people are coming to with lots of technical problems. So we go through a process of scripting out a base program, and then really trying to get it out into the markets, you know, as quickly as we can, so that we can then look at the way that users are interacting with it and optimize the system. So looking at a 6 month journey, we started out doing majority support type information and helping people with those types of issues. But we've then incorporated natural language understanding, you know, the ability for users to type in questions. And you touched on that earlier in the conversation, Faz. And I guess that's been important because it gives not only the ability for Grace to be able to respond intelligently, but also for you guys to be able to see types of business insights that you might not ordinarily have access to. You've got the real voice of the customer there. What are they actually going with at 11 o'clock at night where their Netflix has stopped working? How are they feeling about that? What are they trying to get solved? And we've been able to use that data to then analyze it and say, well, okay, we need to incorporate this feature, or we think we can expand it into a different area completely. And I guess that's what we're working on now. We're looking at how we can best optimize Grace to continue to have her deliver a great service to your customers. Yeah.
And you speak about the part where you're trying to get Grace to alleviate some of the load, right? And especially in our world, one thing that we don't want to do is outsource our call center to a different country, right? Now, and it's not that the call centers in different countries are bad, it's just that they're not managed properly, in our opinion, and hence how much can you train somebody on an ongoing basis, right? And how much access do you have to them, right? And what we've seen during the COVID period is the lack of support because of, you know, call centers closing down and things like that. And so we're not going to go away from keeping our support onshore, right? But on that, as we grow as a business, there's more demand on support, right? And the money you make doesn't always warrant the investment in resources, right? And so you always have the right balance of investing in more heads versus you know how many customers you get and things like that. And what Grace, and I know we're working on this in future phases, is to how we could implement Grace to take that first initial step to try and take away a percentage of the load, because there might be a simple question like, how do I update my credit card? Or, how do I know where to find out how much data I've used and things like that. And Grace is a very simple way of achieving that, right? So I think that's the way we're looking at it, and not to give all our secrets away to our competitors as well. And but I mean, I think that's a real big element of it. I mean, Ross, you're heavy in support, right? And supporting our support. I mean, how great would it be that a conversational bot could answer a bunch of questions before it even got to you? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think that's a key, and what you touched on, Matt, was taking away some of the pain points. I mean, not necessarily even pain points, just giving the customer another option, basically. So, if you can go online and get your question answered, then you're not going to call, and then it's another call that can be saved, and obviously we can attend to another call. So anything that obviously cuts down on support, the load in the support team in the call center is obviously really beneficial for us as a business. And I think, even though it was initially a trial, I think it's worked really well with Grace. I mean, as you mentioned, we're not open 24/7, and whereas other call centers who are overseas have probably the option of going 24/7, it's not something we can financially afford to do. And we're sticking to our values. We want 100% local support, and to do that, we can't really be open 24/7. So exactly. I think this is a good way. And I know a lot of other businesses probably have things like AI chatbots and things like that, but I don't know if there's another competitor in our space that has something similar. Probably, I don't think there is from what I've seen, but.
Yeah, and that's probably a good leading question for you guys, right? I mean, what do you see the advantages of Clevertar versus maybe some other AI bots that are out there at the moment? Maybe give a bit of insight to that to our listeners.
Well, I think one of the key things, I'm really glad you asked that, is that we, obviously we use a virtual character, so that's a very much part of our product. Because that's really our origins, as I was telling you before. But the other thing is that we make it really easy to create a virtual agent. So we have it's an end-to-end system. So as you know, it's only a couple of lines of JavaScript that gets inserted onto your website, and we host it. Yeah. We do the rest. And we have a portal so that you can create your own and view your own content and reports and things like that as well. So we're an as-a-service provider. So you don't have to have coders on board who can actually create the bots, and you don't have to put different services together to try to create. It's basically an end-to-end solution. So it just kind of really fits a provider like yourself who just wants to put a solution in and focus on what you do best, which is the content. Right. Yeah. That's what you do. You know what your customers need, and what we can do is create a way of delivering it. So that's what we do.
By the same token, though, we don't, we certainly don't make it so that our customers are reliant on us to make changes either. We, we hand the keys over, so to speak, and train them in how to use, our portal and how to make changes, so that if they do need to jump on late at night and make a script change because some sort of crisis has happened, they can do so quite easily. So that's a pretty key part of what we do.
Have you seen any customers, or even, I don't know whether even this is a good experience, but using a non-human, only the one I can think of is, say, St. George Bank using their Dragon? Do you think that that's still relatable, or do you think that loses some of that connection?
Actually, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a human because there's actually good research theory behind this. Basically, we anthropomorphize these characters. So our characters are quite stylized, very deliberately. But you could do the same thing with a dog or a dragon or other characters, or a microphone, or you can actually anthropomorphize any kind of thing. But if you see a face, it just kind of makes sense that you're dealing probably with a support person. So that's what we've tended to do. But yeah, there's options. You could think about something else if you wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I was always thinking about in different seasonal periods or different. I was even thinking on, is it May 8th? Is that the Star Wars Day? What's that? Or May 4th?
May 4th.
May 4th.
Yeah, may the 4th be with you. That's it. Sorry, I can tell I'm not a Star Wars fan, but if that could on that day be Darth Vader or something or Stormtrooper or something like that would be pretty cool, right? I think relevant and seasonality drives a big thing. And if we talk about how our world works, right? In retail and when you sell to consumers, there are buying cycles in the year that drive them, right? There's, right now we have end of tax time and what they call toy sale, right? When toy sale, everybody goes into store, lay-buys everything for Christmas. Maybe it's not so big anymore from a lay-buy perspective because people buy online and you've got Afterpay and all these different things. But it does, there's a lot of seasonality, especially in Australia, that people buy at certain time for certain reasons, which is good. Yeah, from that point of view.
You know what? That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think we're doing our product development publicly here, but we could definitely add a Christmas hat towar's Christmas.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, the brief was probably coming.
I think little touches like that just make it a bit more personal. So I think anything like that.
And we talk a lot about
feedback.
We talk about a lot about personal service and customization and things like that. And I think that's key, right? And I think one thing that Clevertar's enabled us to do, not only give the information, but put it in our tone of voice as well when we're not there. That's huge. Like, if you know our brand, we're about being mates, we're about being, dumbing it down and being simple and getting straight to the point and making sure that everybody feels like they're at home when they're in our world, in our space. And I think Clevertar allows us to achieve that as well.
Yeah. It's probably a good segue, but where do you guys see sort of the next evolution of this going, or, is the market responding in a certain way that you need to change the way you guys do business? Like, what's in, say, 2025, what are we looking at from an AI perspective?
Oh, look, it's really extending the applications of this sort of technology. So the technology will definitely change as AI gets better. But it's probably more about application. So, you guys are actually a good example of this. So you started working with support. So it was mainly around support for, as Matt said, the first level support call. And then I remember there was a point when your sales team said, hang on a sec, people are talking to Grace about sales, about, what plan's right for me.
Yep.
And let's explore that a bit further. And so just having Grace as a sales assistant as well as a support assistant. And so that's something that the market learns, in an evolutionary way once they've started using the technology. And I think that's what we're going to find. We're going to find a lot more varied and different applications of this kind of technology. I think that's going to be one of the key things that will change.
I think they'll become a lot more commonplace as well. I think that's the key thing. I mean, I think chatbots in general are getting to be quite commonplace now. Certainly web chat has been around for a while and that's been increasing in popularity, but automated conversational bots are certainly something that you're seeing pop up on more websites. And I think a natural extension of that is when you put a face to that. So putting a face and having a 3D character speak to you with a personality, I think is going to be something that by 2025 is going to be certainly tenfold more than what you see now.
And do you think two-way voice, like you've got Alexa and Siri and that at the moment, do you think that's going to become something where you can literally just talk to this person and they'll respond?
Absolutely, yeah. We have that in, we've got some prototypes happening ourselves. So, yeah, there's absolutely the next. So, once again, stay tuned.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to get you back on at another point and get updates there. Like voice for me is becoming an everyday thing, right? I mean, I don't even turn my lights on at the switch anymore. I talk to him. So, if it's dark, you go home and when he's finishing this business, you go home very late. And then when I get home, I say it to my phone before I even drive in the driveway and the lights are on when I get in. It's pretty, I know you can set it, automation as well, but it's just just the powerfulness around all of that stuff, right? It's crazy. And people always come over and say, well, what the hell do you why do you need to speak to turn on your lights? Why don't you just flick the switch? But last year I tore my Achilles, and I don't know if you guys remember. I don't know. So I was in a boot, right? And so getting to a light switch was hard work. And so I could easily say, hey, Google, turn on the kitchen lights, and all these different things. So I mean, I guess you don't know what you need until it's until you experience it. Until you need it, but until you experience something that you've never experienced before, and then you realize how it can fit into your world. And I mean, I think it's the same. That's what we say at Mate as well. Like we feel like that. Okay, we don't offer anything revolutionary compared to other people, but the way we do it is, and once you experience it, we feel like that's an experience that you have never had before, and that's something that you get that's unique to us. And I think about the same way with what you guys offer as well, right? And I mean, talk about other customers. I know we've spoken about Telco and we've spoken about Mate, but I mean, I know you're doing a project with SA Health, right? South Australia Health. What are the different things that Clevertar has powered in that world?
Yeah, well, I'll give you a bit of background with the SA Health project. So this all came about as a result of COVID-19 and SA Health, being South Australia's government health authority, we're getting absolutely slammed with customer inquiries and the public's inquiries, with basically panic, as it is around the world. Panic at that early stage, especially around what's going to happen. What are the issues? How do I get tested? Where can I go? What can I do? All of those things. And, their website traffic went absolutely through the roof. And this was...
And their call centre, their contact centre.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And as you mentioned, this is another channel. So we offered another channel for people to be able to communicate with Zoe. So Zoe is the character that they chose, and they chose Zoe. Similar nice meaning as your one has with Grace and your mum. Zoe is the Greek meaning for life. And it's a nice, easy name to say. And they chose Zoe, and she is on the website answering questions about COVID-19. So started off as quite a small framework, similar to you guys in that we took an MVP approach, but that was really pushed because we wanted to get something out into the public's hands as quick as we could. And we were able to turn that around and get something live with them within 6 days, which was an effort that we're really quite proud of. And that was, we took a basic flow chart of all the things that a user, if they came in and they come from interstate, and what do they have to do? Do they have to quarantine for 14 days? Do they have to not go to work? All of those things. We prototyped that into a nice little program. And then over the next 3 months, we've continued to add to that, basically in line with the changing conditions of COVID-19, but also incorporating other technologies and seeing the way that the public are responding and the sort of questions they're asking of Zoe, and expanding the content accordingly.
That's a perfect example of where it works so well. When you have such an influx, I mean, we had an influx of customers as well, and COVID drove such demand for all different types of services, and I think businesses are reevaluating now that we've sort of, I wouldn't say we're out of COVID yet, but we're sort of coming to the end of the mass panic, right? We saw people stockpiling internet and mobiles just like toilet paper, right? There was that many people coming in. And I guess it's because it was an essential service. People were working from home, doing schooling from home. So connectivity was massive, right? And so, but at the same time, we need to make sure our team was mobilized at home and working properly, as well as keeping the same level of service. And then we saw our competitors go out the market, right? Because their call centers closed down for a week. You couldn't get in touch with them. And I mean, I'm just thinking about that. I mean, not only is the Clevertar program or conversational AI virtual agents important for the everyday, but when it comes to those situations, it keeps your business running, right? I mean, some of our competitors, if they had invested in this type of technology like Clevertar, their business would have kept running and delivering maybe not everything they needed, but there would have been a good chunk of the percentage of what people are asking about would have been solved, and they could have seen as open when they potentially weren't, right? And so it's another thing businesses need to think about, right? I mean, have you seen that type of conversation come from different people that you've spoken to since COVID has started, or since it's been on? Yeah.
Oh, look, thanks for that intro, because your point's absolutely spot on. We had another customer who had to shut their contact center down for a couple of days, and they were really pleased because they knew they had Clevertar ready for their customers, and for them it was just like their service could continue. You know, obviously not to the same level and not for the queries that Claire in this case couldn't handle, and you know all that sort of. But they've still got an essential service available. What you've talked about has actually happened.
There you go.
With one of our customers, so it's absolutely valid what you're saying.
I just think more and more businesses need to be smarter, right? We always say work smarter, not harder, right? Yeah. And I think this is something that your product allows businesses to do. I think if there's challenges that are out of the norm, your product picks up the slack as well in that case. And it's just so many benefits. And I think people need to open their eyes to new technologies and things like this that can really benefit your business in a lot of ways that you probably never even thought of in the past. Yeah.
And so, you know, a lot of our listeners out there has probably struck a few chords and they're realising that they have a gap to fill. How's the best way to get started with you guys and have a chat?
Well, look, the first thing that we want to do, just to continue from what Matt said earlier, is find out where the biggest pain point is. So is it a situation where an automated or an AI-driven conversation can support you? You know, if there's not a strong value, you know, we can't make a big impact. We actually don't want to do those projects. Yeah. So we only want to work with customers where we can actually really make impact. So the first thing that we would do is sit down and actually do some investigation of what the applications are, where the needs are, and then really look at a business case. Does it stack up? And then move to as Matt said, move to an MVP, which can happen pretty quickly. And then, so it's test, evaluate, optimize, test, evaluate. And we just do that continuing. And actually, we've implemented an agile process for content development as well. Matt's in charge of that. So we really take a partnership, actually, a real partnership approach with our customers. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. I think, what do we do first? We'll just get in touch and then we'll go from there.
And how do they get in touch? Where should we go?
Oh, look, just hit our website at clevertar.com, and that's probably the easiest.
Awesome. We'll put those details in our show notes anyway, so anyone's interested can scroll down and hit the link.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, Tanya, Matt, it's really been great having you guys on. Thank you very much for joining us. I think what we'll do, we're working on a new phase of Clevertar, or Grace, as we call her, in our business. And I think what we'll do, we'll get you on at a later time once we implement that as well and talk about the benefits that's happened with that. Love to hear about some of the stories and the projects that you're working on. So I think this is to be continued, this conversation.
Been a pleasure, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to the Let's Be Mates podcast by the team at Mate.
Search for the Let's Be Mates podcast on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and at letsbemates.com.au. Hit subscribe to get the latest episode each week.
For all your telco needs, choose a provider you can trust like a mate. Visit letsbemates.com.au, Google Mate, or call us on 13 14 13 to sign up today.
See you soon, mate.